All right. So, having read the first chapter in Ishmael, I want to just kind of offer, and this is what I'll do because I mean, there's so much richness in this text that these video lectures could be really long if I really went through every single little bit. Um, but what I will do is, in these video lectures for the next 2 weeks, I won't make them overly exhaustive, but I will give them at least a little bit of hopefully some supplemental information, and also offer you just some points that I think are particularly worth noting. But I won't be too exhaustive, and I certainly, won't spend hours here on a video chat or on a video lecture. Okay? So let's work through this first chapter pretty quickly together, kind of getting a pretty good basis of what is happening. So remember that how I will lay this out is that Dan Quinn, has chapters, but then he also has sections. So again, chapter 1, section 1. Okay. Now, in this first chapter, we're introduced to the narrator. We're also introduced to Ishmael. And, we're introduced to this seemingly frustrated individual, right, as it relates to the narrator. And he finds this ad, and the ad, kind of makes him angry because, he's moved on with his life. He's kind of gotten a job, and what he craved was something like this ad that he had stumbled across, right? So you get this on the first page. The first time I read the ad, I choked, I cursed, spat and threw the paper on the floor, blah, blah, blah. The ad was advertising the following. Teacher seeks pupil must have an earnest desire to save the world. Apply in person. An earnest desire to save the world. Ooh, I liked that. That was rich. An earnest desire to save the world. Yes, that was splendid. Right? And he kind of gets a little feisty. Was saying, oh my gosh, there's going to be so many people that go down there, and they're all, none better for it, right? And so he says, why is this person so indignant, talking about himself, right? The answer goes back to a couple of decades ago when I had the silly notion that the thing I wanted to do most in the world was find a teacher, find a mentor, right? That's right, I imagined I wanted a teacher, needed a teacher to show me how one goes about doing something might be called saving the world, right? And kind of like, recognizing, that during the kind of hippie revolution in the 60s and 70s, a lot of people really wanted to kind of go counterculture, really wanted to kind of like break down conventional norms, right? And during the Children's Revolt of the 60s and 70s, I was just old enough to understand that these kids had in mind, they meant to turn the world upside down, right? Change the status quo, blah, blah, blah. Then one day I realized in my mid-teens, I woke up and realized that the new era was never going to begin. The revolt hadn't been put down. It had just been dwindled into a fashion statement. Could I have been the only person in the world who was ever disillusioned by this? Bewildered, blah, blah, blah. What'd you expect? Nobody ever... there's never been any more than this, and there will never be any more than this. Nobody's out to save the world because nobody gives a damn about the world. It's just a bunch of goofy kids talking. Get a job, make some money, work till you're 60, then move to Florida and die. Right? And I think that we kind of see this a little bit, especially in the social media world, right, where you have so many people, with so many different causes that all have roots in being noble and being kind of worthwhile. But we have so many different causes that people want to get behind and to change the status quo, to change kind of how things are going. But in the end, isn't it the case that all of us really do just have to live a life where we get a job, we make some money, and then maybe move to Florida and die? I don't think all of us are going to move to Florida, but I mean that sentiment of kind of Western trajectory, of Western kind of capitalistic influence certainly dictates a lot of what we feel is capable with our lives, right? Even if it is the case that we, would like to have maybe more freedom or maybe more ability of living a life that we truly truly want, we kind of are held to some pretty strict expectations that in a tongue-in-cheek kind of way are reflected in the sentiment that all of us are going to get a job, make some money, work till you're 60. Then move to Florida, Arizona, wherever the case may be, and die, right? I mean, it's a little sad, but I don't think it's off base, right? Um, and so the narrator here is very curious about and frustrated by the fact that what he had wanted was somebody to maybe warn him against that, or maybe offer a perspective that would have challenged that view, that would have challenged that prevailing view of moving to Florida and or getting a job and working until you're 60 and then dying. Right? So the narrator, and that's all on my page 5, so pretty early on in the novel here. And so what he does, right? And just to kind of, because he was kind of craving a teacher at such a young age, he gives this nice little anecdote, and I think it's kind of clever, right? And made me think about it in terms of, again, social media, 2019, maybe you're single and you're looking for somebody to date. You go, so kind of like work with it in this framework. Try this. You've been in love with somebody for a decade, someone who barely knows you're alive. You've done everything, tried to make this person see that you're a valuable, estimable person, that your love is worth something. Then one day you open up the paper or you go on Tinder, whatever the case may be, and you glance at the personals column, and there you see that your loved one has placed an ad seeking someone worthwhile to love and to be loved by, right? And you become so frustrated by it because you have been there the whole time. You've been craving and wanting, to know that person, to experience life with them, and they haven't given you the time of day. And now they're looking for someone. They're looking for you, right? Similarly, the narrator, right, was wanting somebody to learn from, was wanting to be taught by. And then, a couple decades after that desire, he sees this ad. So he gets frustrated. So he says, well, got to go down there. Got to check it out. Got to see for my own eyes, right? Got to see for my own eyes, Okay. Now, here's what we get. Okay, pardon me. All right. I mean, there's really no way to just better say what Ishmael is, right? He goes down to this building, and he notices, and he goes into the room, okay, and he notices that there's a big pane of glass. There's a big pane of kind of double paned glass, okay. There's some books in the room, yeah. And it's just kind of an empty room. The glass in this window was black, opaque, reflective. I made no attempt to see beyond it as I approached. I was a spectacle under observation. On arrival, pardon me, sorry about that one. On arrival, I continued to gaze into my own eyes because it's a reflective piece of glass, then rolled my focus forward beyond the glass and found myself looking into another pair of eyes. I fell back, startled, then I recognized what I had seen. I fell back again, now a little frightened. The creature on the other side of the glass was a full-grown gorilla. Full-grown says nothing, of course. He was terrifyingly enormous, a boulder, a sarsen of Stonehenge. His sheer mass is alarming itself, and even though he wasn't using it by any menacing way. On the contrary, he was half sitting, half reclining, most passively nibbling decidedly on a slender branch he carried in his left hand like a wand. Right? So, the thing that had placed the ad, presumably, is this full-grown, huge gorilla. There is a sign, right? There's a sign that says, with man gone, will there be hope for gorilla? Okay. All right. Still in section 2 of chapter 1 here. This is right before section 3. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Wait, let me see here. For no conscious reasons, I lifted my eyes to those of my companion in the next room. As everyone knows, eyes speak. A pair of strangers can effortlessly reveal their mutual interest and attraction in a single glance. His eyes spoke, and I understood. My legs turned to jelly. I barely managed to reach the chair without collapsing. But how? I said, not daring to speak the words aloud. What does it matter? He replied as silently. It's so... and nothing needs more to be said. But you, I sputtered, you are... I found that having come to the word and with no other word to put in its place that I could speak of, After a moment he nodded as if acknowledging my difficulty. I am the teacher. For a time we gazed into each other's eyes, and I lifted my head, empty as a derelict barn. Then he said, "Do you need time to collect yourself?" "Yes," I cried, speaking aloud for the first time. He turned his massive head to one side and peered at me curiously. "Will it help you to listen to my story?" "It will indeed, but first will you please tell me your name?" And the gorilla does not respond to that question. Okay. So let's just make sure we understand what's happening here. Okay. We have the narrator, we have this gorilla, and they are communicating through their eyes telepathically. Okay. Yep. There's lots of questions to potentially ask here. Okay. And potentially worth investigating. But I'm going to leave those for you to think on your own. And maybe they'll come up on the discussion threads, the discussion boards. Okay. All right. So the next couple of sections here, the gorilla, again, no name has been given, okay, goes through his story, as to why he is sitting in this room. Okay. He's originally called Goliath in a traveling menagerie. Then he gets kind of purchased by this person named Walter Sokolow. And then they start learning together, start teaching together. The gorilla, and pardon me, Walter names the gorilla Ishmael, and this is at the bottom of section 4, chapter 1. Or it's a little bit before that, but he is named Ishmael by Walter. Okay. And then in chapter 6 is where we get a little bit of a discussion going. And I'm going to go ahead and pause there and start a new video. Okay. So we're about to pick up section 6, chapter 1.